Ajudiada, and I'm 22 years old. I work at YMCA. I was raised in Manhattan.
My first name is Anita, and my last name is Festus. I am 32 years old, and I am the CEO of House of Nita. I have been here for about 5 years.
My name is Abigail Yakubu. I'm 20 years old. I'm a student. I'm a hairstylist. I've been in the US exactly 3 years and 7 months.
My name is Marion Barry. I am 24. I'm about to be 25 in a couple of months. I am currently a student at Brooklyn College. I moved here in 2013.
So my name is Oluwadamilola Adeyemi. I'm 20 years old and I'm a student. So I've been here for, I would say, like 6 months-ish.
I aspire to be a clinical therapist. It's something that my family is very unfamiliar with. In African culture, you're either going to be a lawyer or a doctor. That's two of the choices that you get to choose from. And so I'm being very defiant, aspiring to be a clinical therapist. Growing up, I was too African or too dark-skinned to be African American. And also, what made it even worse was that I went to a camp in Maine when I was about 10, and it was for 7 consecutive summers. And I remember I was one of 4 black girls in a whole entire camp of all the other kids were white, and so were the counselors. There were only like 2 African American counselors, and I remember that I always had to code switch, and so I felt like I was too ghetto or too black to be in that space, and so I had to assimilate. I was conflicted between American culture and Senegalese culture. So I always considered myself more Senegalese than American because living in America, I was an outcast. I felt like an outcast. And so I kind of turned to Senegalese culture. And so I would say that it was difficult knowing where I belonged.
Oh, I grew up in the city. It's called Lagos. It's a place called Lagos in Nigeria. It's like the heartbeat of Nigeria, and it's kind of a rough, stroke classy place, but it was good. And growing up was a struggle, but yeah. Back home, America looks like a second heaven. When you say you're going to America, oh my God, it's like you're going to heaven part 2, you know. So it's like, okay, everybody wants to come to America or London or wherever and, you know, get a better life. And then back home, I had an acting career, and I had this real estate thing I was doing that wasn't moving too well. And then my uncle goes to me, "You're hardworking. I think you would make it better in America." And, you know, that's it. I decided, you know what, girl, go for it. Because I told myself, it's not my fault that I'm from a poor home, but it's my fault if I die poor, you know? So I'm gonna be strong and push through, and I'm at it.
I grew up in Lagos. Lagos is urban Nigeria, so it's the city. People usually call it the New York of Nigeria, so it's like the commercial capital, even though it's not technically the capital of Nigeria, it's the commercial capital of Nigeria. Growing up in Nigeria was really interesting. Whenever I think about my childhood, the very first thing I think about is just having so many people around me. I remember growing up with my cousins and they were just always there, and I'm a church girl, so I always had my church members in my house, or I was going to someone else's house, and I just remember like just so much of a community around me. I just remember having so much fun growing up in Nigeria. I definitely got closer to God being here because I didn't have anyone telling me what to do, and there were so many times I could have gotten into trouble, but I'm really, really grateful that I was able to stay true to myself. Another thing that America taught me was like how important it is to be very, very resilient. So there are times when I went through things that I was almost giving up. I was going to like pick up my phone and be like, you know what, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm going back home. At least I know when I go back home, there's someone there that can be there for me, or I already had an admission in school in Nigeria anyway, and you know, but like being in America definitely taught me to like keep going and never give up, no matter how hard things seem to be, to always fight for what you believe in and what you want to achieve, and obviously you always, you know, be successful in the end. I'm generally not someone that likes to limit myself to like one certain thing, so I have a lot of aspirations. I feel like things that have to do with vocation are not really encouraged where I come from. It's generally just white-collar jobs. Like you have to be a lawyer, you have to be a doctor, you have to be an engineer, or else you can't make it in life. But I feel like if I hadn't like had the gift that I have, or like the vocation that I have, I probably wouldn't have done as well as I have so far in the US. I love Brooklyn College. I generally joke and call it the UN. When I applied to CUNY, I really didn't think it was that diverse. Like I literally walk around my campus and I hear someone behind me speaking Yoruba. I'm like, okay. The faculty is really good in Brooklyn College. It's a pretty hard school to be in, but I feel like they're just like training us up to be better at whatever fields or whatever things we want to pursue after. I have had hard times. I've had bad days there. But I feel like generally I did make the right decision by going there because I've learned a lot about just African culture, like adapting in the society. Like I literally have a community of people that come from where I come from and like are trying to like navigate the world here. And I feel like that is something I would not have had in any other school, or not many other schools in the US.
I grew up in Freetown in Sierra Leone. That's basically the city, kind of like the capital too, where everything happens. My family originally were Fulani. We're from Guinea, and specifically in Guinea, we're from Dalaba, which is like one of the villages there. Dalaba, Bantingel, which is my actual village, it's like pinpointing to you exactly where I'm from. So, you know, back in the day, my grandfather moved to the city because he wanted better opportunities for his kids. I feel like maybe here there are more opportunities for you as a woman as opposed to being back home. So I guess it has impacted me on a positive level and also on a negative level, because it's like when you move to New York, you don't care about anything. It's all about you, yourself, and you. Like everything else is like whatever. So maybe that isn't really a positive thing, I guess, but it just teaches you how to look out for yourself, which is always a good thing. I feel like it's definitely a different experience to like living in New York, because it's like in Sierra Leone, everyone is like kind of like your family because you all grew up together, you all speak the same language. So when so's mom is kind of your aunt, it's like the entire community is family, basically. As opposed to when you move to New York, it's like every man for themselves. Like I've lived in the same building for the past 7 years. I can't tell you what my neighbor's name is. I don't even think I say hi to my neighbors because I don't even know who they are. I first moved here actually. Being African was sort of like looked down on, but like in the past, I want to say 2-3 years, it has become this, it's cool to be African now. It's like you run into people like, oh my God, you're African? Where can I get some dashiki? Oh, where can I get some fufu? And then there's this whole like jollof thing that goes around, and it's like, all of a sudden it's cool to be African because I feel like maybe the media portrays it as cool. I went to Brooklyn College 2 semesters ago. No, about a year and a half ago, because I'm about to graduate. When I went there, I noticed that they had a BSU, which is a Black Student Union. They had a CSU, Caribbean Student Union. They had a HASA, which is the Haitian Student Association. They had different frats on campus. They had like a representation of everything except for the African community, which I guess at the time, being African wasn't as popular as it is now. So no one really put any work into it, and the entire time Brooklyn College has been there, there's never been an African Student Union. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. We've had a couple of events. We've had a dance workshop, we've had an African showcase, a Battle of the Sexes, which was on colorism, funny enough. We've had, what other events? We're also having like a Taste of Africa ball at the end of the semester. And the purpose of that ball is to basically teach everyone African culture. So we're gonna have like different tables with like different history on different African countries, when they gain independence, what their traditional foods are, what languages they speak in that country, how many cultures they are in there. So I major in public health on campus, and I have a minor in Africana Studies. And the reason I took Africana Studies is because as a Black person in this country, you need to know your African history, you need to know your African roots, and you need to understand why. I could tell you about African history, but I cannot tell you about American history. So by taking Africana Studies, you see where the two, merge. And I feel like that's just very important for every Black person to take as a minor or a major or whatever it is that they choose to do. I majored in public health because I hope to go home one day, like just to move back. Because, Africa, it's beautiful, but the health system leaves a lot to be desired. So by learning how to run a hospital, learning how different policies, just learning about what makes the health system here so good, I could take that home and make our health system better and just,
So I was born and raised in Lagos. I lived all of my life in Lagos. And I think one of the most interesting things about living in Nigeria is just the vibe. There's a Nigerian vibe that you have living in Nigeria. So I currently, I school in the UK at the University of Hertfordshire, but then I'm currently taking an exchange year, so a study abroad year in the US, Stony Brook. And yeah, it seemed like a very good opportunity. It is a very good opportunity just because, again, just the things I've been exposed to, the opportunities I've gotten. I think, yeah, it's just having I just think it's a very good opportunity to be able to contrast schooling in 3 different countries, Nigeria, the UK, and then the US. You can immediately spot the differences in, all of the different education systems. I intend on going into medicine. Well, I'm currently on the track to medicine, and I also intend on getting into a bit of tech. Hopefully I hope to be able to merge that sometimes in future, medicine and tech, because I think, the world is going digital, and yeah, it's very futuristic, and I'm just trying to get into that field. I think one of the reasons why I came to America has to do with the representation of America in the media. Watching TV growing up, America was always referred to as the land of opportunities, the land of hope, the land where dreams are made. And I think, that kind of stuck with me because, America is America. Everyone around the world knows America.
My family is from Dakar, Senegal. I would say that's the New York of Senegal. I feel like I claim my Senegalese culture more because the people claim me more. I'm very proud to be Senegalese American.
I lived in a house for 3 years, and I didn't know my next door neighbor's name. I didn't even know what they looked like. I feel like I only saw them once. But like in Nigeria, you literally know everybody's name, like on your street. When you're walking down the street, you'd have like 6 people to say hi to.
At home, where I grew up in Nigeria, we have, for instance, when you see an elderly person, you don't greet them standing. You know, you try to show some respect, and you have to put the word sir, or, you know, try to, or ma, you know. But getting here, I'm like, you could see your boss, and for instance, when I was working in the Arch Diner in Brooklyn, I call my boss, and he goes upset, like, why are you calling me a boss? My name is Louis. It took me a while to adjust to it, but I saw everybody calling him Louis, and then I decided to call him Louis.
I've come to understand is you kind of have to look out for yourself and also look out for the people who are like you, because at the end of the day, the way the system is set up, it's, you know, there's not much you can do in regards to how the system sees you or how the system sort of places you in a box. So yeah, I think it's just something that you forget, but then in a place like America, once you leave the comfort of your home, you just kind of, it just comes back, like it just rushes back to you, and you kind of think, oh yeah, I need to be more guarded.
When I was working in the Arch Diner in Brooklyn, we had this couple, they actually white, and they came to, I was the cashier, so, you know, they, after eating, you have to come pay me, and they came by the counter to pay me, and they said they wanted to see the boss. My boss is white, and I'm like, okay, I had to go call him from the office, maybe thinking they had complaints about the food or the service or something. Guess what? When he came up and he tried to talk to them, they only said they wanted to pay their bills. And then he goes, that's why I have the cashier, pay your bills to the cashier. They said no, they want him to take the money. And then he did, but then I'm like, are you kidding me? They still have people like this here?
Honestly, I never identified with being black until I left Nigeria. I always identified as Yoruba, which, you know, if you're in Nigeria, you're Yoruba, Igbo, Edo, whatever. But then coming out of Nigeria, I had to start identifying as African and black. And then I think that label comes with its own sort of struggles, its own problems. And I mean, there's just, again, there's a bias with, you know, being, you are at the bottom of the totem pole at the end of the day, and you just kind of have to deal with the struggles like every other person here. And I think it's, you become more, I don't know, pro-black leaving your home country, just because now all of the struggles you've seen on TV, it starts to resonate with you, and you start to identify with it a lot more.
I've never experienced racism outrightly, first time. I put outrightly there because I have definitely been discriminated against because of the color of my skin and because of where I come from. I also want to speak on colorism because I feel like that's something that people in the black community try to shy away from, and it's also a real issue, and it's also as big as, I'm not going to be like outrightly say it's as big as racism, but it's honestly just as bad.
Say that colorism definitely exists in the African American community. I've always been told that I was pretty, but many people would say, you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl, or if only you were lighter, you know, like you would be so pretty. It was always a burden, like the dark skin was always a burden for me. It was the reason for my anxiety. It was the reason that I was shy. It was the reason that I got bullied. It was a hard time.
It stems from us, like it's within the community. I just remember being in high school and like I'd hear people talk about like the most beautiful people in class or the most beautiful girl in class, and it's always the light-skinned one. And I honestly thought it was different here, but it's still the same thing.
Bleaching is the anthem. Oh, okay, we don't call it bleaching, we call it pop-up or tuning or whatever. Case closed, it's bleaching, you know. So that's how I see it. It's bleaching, it's bleaching. Oh, okay, let me make it mild. It's tone up. So we all tone the skin. And it's the same insecurities that I had in the past. That is the same thing these women are having, where you feel, oh, you have to be light-skinned to be seen, you know, or you have to be light-skinned to be recognized, you have to be light-skinned to be respected.
White means pure. White means, but it doesn't mean that white skin, but white in general. That's how I look at it. It means pure.
I'm an actress in Nigeria, and I went one time for an audition, and the producer auditioned me. I did very good. I acted and everything, and then he goes to me, "Oh, you're a good actor. I love the way you direct everything, the way you speak your lines and all that." Okay, so what's the problem? And he goes, "But there's a slight problem." I'm like, "What happened?" He says, "I think you should bleach your skin a bit because you're too dark." I'm like, "I don't get it. You don't have dark people in the camera?" And he goes, "Oh no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you're gonna go far in life if you go light skin, like if you try to pop up your skin." I did a lot of popping up. I used to be a lot darker than this. And the funniest part is, after I did all that, I refused to go back to the industry. I'm like, fuck it.
Most of the people I knew bleached their skin. It was about bleaching because they want to look lighter. And like people would tell me, "Oh, you're already a little light. If you bleach a little bit, you just get that fairer complexion. You could pass for lighter, you know." Even with my daughter, like my daughter looks mixed. So when I go out with my daughter, people are like, "Oh, what is she mixed with?" And I'm like, what do you mean, what is she mixed with? It's almost like I should be flattered because my daughter could pass for something other than black, which is what she is. Being black also for women is also a trend now. It's like being dark skinned is beautiful apparently, but it's always been beautiful, you know? But now more and more people are looking at it as, I feel like it's more so a trend than anything, because even like the dark skinned women you see on social media that are, you know, publicized, they have to fit a certain criteria. You can't just be dark skinned and beautiful. You're not the regular dark skinned girl you run into on the street. Like you have to have certain hair, certain features.
But I never had issues with being a black woman because I didn't consider myself a black woman. Let me explain. So I grew up in Nigeria, right? I want to say 95% of the people I saw on the day-to-day basis were black. They looked like me.
Up until when I got to America, every black person I'd ever met was African, or yeah, basically African. Whether you were from Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, you were African. And so coming here and meeting other black people and realizing that they're not African, and so you don't relate with them the same way you would relate with other Africans.
There is really a difference between an African and an African American, and a naive 17-year-old Abby didn't know that. I had experiences where people expected me to talk about living in huts, living where animals are, or like asking me just some random questions that I was like, okay, I grew up in Lagos. My parents are from a village, but I actually never have been there except for like once. So I have no idea what you're talking about. And also people always tend to like say, "Oh, like you speak English really well," like for an African person. And I'm like, yeah, English is actually our first language, you know? And like, it's always used to come from African Americans.
I feel like there's a disconnect a little bit, because on one hand, you're African, you know, you have all these cultures, you have all these beliefs, all these traits, like, you know, all these values. And on the other hand, like you are in America, and the closest thing you have to a relation is the African American culture, but you don't fully fit in. Because if you do try to fully fit in, you don't fit into your culture anymore, like you lose your culture.
All I have to say is we are one people, we are one nation. Segregating or discriminating with your skin color doesn't change anything. It doesn't push anything anyway. It just makes the country divided, you know. We should always have this mindset of being one.
I'm the most confident I've ever been, because of my mom, you know, how strong she is and how proud she is of where she comes from. Growing up, witnessing that really made me more confident. And especially now, you know, with Instagram and YouTube, I feel like I see more people who look like me, people who are intelligent, smart, and, you know, beautiful and elegant. And I see that and I'm able to relate myself to those people. And that makes me more confident.
Now I feel like I've gotten to a point in my life where I've just been more accepting of things. I tend to analyze things a little bit too much, which is like one of my biggest flaws and greatest strengths at the same time. But I've just gotten to a point where I've just learned to like be accepting of myself and like all of my flaws and everything that I feel like isn't good enough.
I feel fulfilled. If that's the word you want to use, I feel fulfilled. Like I've been able, I can beat my chest and say, girl, you have done well for yourself. At 32, you have establishments, you have workers working for you, you're a boss of your own. That's an achievement to me, you know, because there are so many people my age that haven't gotten to the stage. So I would say America has helped me a lot, a whole lot, you know, because the same way I work here, I can walk back home, but you don't get the jobs back home. So over here, you get job opportunities, and if you're ready to work, you're gonna make it. So coming to America has really helped me. I have climbed to a certain point, and I feel fulfilled. At least I've gotten to the point where I can confidently help people. That has always been my drive. I love to help people, you know, because I know what it is not to have. So if I can get to that point, I've always wanted to do that since I was a child. Like, you know, like help people, feed people, be the reason why people smile, be the reason why people go to school, you know. I'm doing those things right now and I feel fulfilled, I feel happy, I feel, okay, girl, you have done so well for yourself with House of Nita. And I have a whole lot of projects. I've not even started. You would hear my name.
Darling, you saved me. You took the hurt and erased it. Everything that's inside of me can let go. Whoa. There's so much joy in the craving. Let's win this game that we're playing.